Well, Matt, talk about another good weekend of football. We got some hot stove news in baseball coming up, and then for the NBA, we have some injury news to talk about. But how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing A-OK, my good man. A lot of stuff has happened, a lot of craziness in the NFL. We're past the halfway point of the year. Baseball, Juan Soto's heating up for the sweepstakes, a lot of stuff going on. And also the Cleveland Cavaliers, congrats to them, 12-0.
Well, that's something they didn't do in the LeBron James year. The Cleveland Cavaliers are becoming an NBA Finals contender. But first off, we'll start with football here. We'll start with talking about some Week 11 games. First, let's start with the Germany game where the New York Giants came off a heartbreaking defeat to the lowly Carolina Panthers, where that team, as we talked about many times, if this team is owned by David Tepper, this Carolina Panther team is going absolutely nowhere. And the Giants, this was a game they should have won, but they didn't.
Yeah, it's just bad. Like, losing to the Carolina Panthers is bad. Losing to the Carolina Panthers is not good for your organization. It got Dennis Allen fired, and I guarantee you that somewhere down the line, Brian Dable's resignation or firing papers will not be too far behind. I don't think he's going to get fired this week or next week. As much as I hate to say it, but I don't think losing the Carolina Panthers was a good thing at all for this organization. It just clearly shows that their season is over. And the worst part about it is there just seems to be no sense of urgency for change at the quarterback position. And that's the worst part.
Well, talk about Daniel Jones. He tried to put together a game-winning drive, and then a fumble happened right away in overtime, and then Eddie Pinheiro kicked the game-winning field goal. Bryce Young, I didn't think he had such a good game out there, but you know what? The Carolina Panthers are playing pretty hard right now.
They're trying to make sense of what's left. They need a little something basically. They're trying to do whatever they can to at least make the season not as bad as it was last season. Last season was horrible for the Carolina Panthers, but Bryce Young, I thought he wasn't fantastic, but he did okay. I wasn't really thrilled with his decision making in the pocket, but I honestly think that Daniel Jones was just a complete and utter disgrace of performance this game. And the defense wasn't as good as they have been in the past. I genuinely think that all across the board, coaching, defense, special teams, offense, the Giants failed on all fronts. And while we both picked that the Giants were going to lose this game, it's disappointing to say that they did it in this fashion. It's not good.
Well, I'll tell you this next. I'll tell you this. We should talk about Thursday Night Football. Man, this was a game where the Ravens barely escaped. And as for the Bengals, another good game by Joe Burrow. But you know what? That 2-point conversion is going to bite Zach Taylor in the butt.
It is going to bite him in the butt, but I think what's going to bite them even more in the butt is the fact that they basically went for 2, which I thought was a good decision at the time, to get the game over with and have it won. The referees, who've been horrible this year across the board in the NFL, missed a holding call in the end zone. That should have been another try on 2 points for the Bengals, and they missed it. And Joe Burrow was grabbed in the face mask during the 2-point play. So the Ravens got away with one. A lot of the top teams in the league got away with one this week. We'll get into that as the show progresses. But I honestly think the Bengals got robbed, but the Ravens put up a good fight. And I got to say that you got to tip the hat to them. They won.
I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be in playoff contention. I think that this team is very sneaky good, and their schedule's kind of favorable, but we're going to wait and see what happens down the line for the Bengals.
I think when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, they have to take it week to week. One thing for them is that they got to play the Pittsburgh Steelers twice, a team that hasn't played a division game all season long. So, look, there's still time. I'm not ruling them out at all. I think they still have a chance, but they got to string some important wins together. I don't know what to say. Every time we have a Ravens and Bengals game, it always seems to be entertaining, and that's what's great.
Well, the New England Patriots came into the Windy City and embarrassed the Chicago Bears 19-3. To be honest with you, man, I'm very happy with the win. I liked how we played. but I felt like offensively we could have done better. But I really liked how we played, especially on the defensive side of the ball, pressuring Caleb Williams, giving them a hard time. But as for the Bears, that's a slap in the face for the Chicago Bears.
Oh, big time. And they've already made a move after the game. They already did. They made a move in their offensive staff, which we'll overanalyze. But the Patriots played really well. I think they're starting to come together a little bit. I mean, obviously, they got their hearts broken last week, losing to the Tennessee Titans in overtime. And I think they took their momentum from that game, brought it to here, and they played really well. I mean, Drake May wasn't spectacular by any means, but he made the plays that he needed to make. And that's what all you need from your rookie QB.
He did. He's progressing well since he's taken over the starting job. But you know what? Our schedule is going to not be so favorable when playing the Rams. We'll get into the Rams in a little bit. The Patriots are probably going to lose that game, which we'll get into. But for the Chicago Bears, their schedule is very brutal. Thomas Brown is now their offensive coordinator. No more Shane Waldron. I feel like this move would really help Caleb Williams.
It should. I don't understand half the plays that Shane Waldron called this season. And I honestly think that Caleb Williams, you look at him, he just looked lost. He really did. And that's not what you want from your rookie QB. This is exactly what happened when Matt Nagy was the head coach for Justin Fields during his rookie year. So obviously Chicago has not had a good reputation for offenses, and that's not really good for rookie QBs. But it seems to me that Chicago, while they did fire Shane Waldron, I feel like if this season continues to go the way it's going, Matt Eberflus might be next in line.
I definitely agree with that. I feel like that the Chicago Bears are a team that I feel like they're going to go in a different direction just because I feel like that they're good. They want an offensive-minded head coach to coach Caleb Williams, which is a sense to me because in the past, during the Bears' successive Super Bowls, they've had a defensive-minded coach with an offense that can game manage and a defense that's hard-nosed. That's not really where we are in today's world in the NFL.
Oh no, yeah, times have changed dramatically, as you've said. You back in the day, the Chicago Bears had a phenomenal defense, and they had steady offense with Jim McMahon as their quarterback, and they had Walter Payton. But at the same time, you're right. It's become a more pass-friendly game. It's become a more explosive offensive type of game. It's become a more vibrant type of game where you need to have good blocking up front. Like ultimately, the Bears are not adjusting to the time zones that we are in the NFL today, like you mentioned. And I honestly think that they need to, get it together because right now, I feel like they're far behind everybody.
They are, but time has to be now. It's not going to be easy for them because the Green Bay Packers have always owned them.
Yeah, it's the Packers. You got the Vikings who are playing really well. The Lions are far and away the best team in that division, if not the NFC. It's just the Bears need to focus on winning football games. And right now, it's too little too late. I think the Hail Mary game got them where it hurt, and that's not good to see.
Well, talk about the 49ers escaping a win in Raymond James Stadium over the Baker Mayfield Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, this was a great football game by both teams. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still in it to make the playoffs, either as a division winner or a wild card team. But for the 49ers, I think they're going to have a good streak going now with this win.
This is a win they absolutely need, and they absolutely are thrilled that Christian McCaffrey is back in the lineup. I can't tell you how big of a move this is for the 49ers. Their star running back who missed half the season, you could see right away the impact he had, catching passes out of the backfield, running the football, everything, big playability. Like McCaffrey brought that back, and that's exactly what the Niners needed. Now, are they going to win the division? It's going to be tough to say because I think the Arizona Cardinals have a wave of momentum right now, but I don't know how many times the Cardinals play the 49ers. Oh, they got to play one more time. So the Cardinals and 49ers got to play each other
Week 18.
In Week 18. That could be the game that decides the division because the Niners have played very well without McCaffrey, but they're hanging in there. And then you look at teams like the Arizona Cardinals, who we'll get into in a second. They are rolling right now. You got to tip your hats off to the Cardinals. And it's funny because I predicted the Cardinals would play this well. I didn't think they'd make the playoffs and be a division leader, but it's kind of amazing. But back to the Niners for a second. They need to keep this momentum going. But now that they got their star running back, I agree with you. They're going to have a string of wins for the rest of the season. They're going to play really well. And I think that Week 18 game is going to look larger and larger and larger for their season.
Well, talk about the Chiefs escaping a win over the Denver Broncos. A Will Lutz block field goal was like, man, that could have been a win for the Denver Broncos. I mean, both Patrick Mahomes didn't have his best game, but you know what? This is a good quarterback rivalry that we're going to see for years to come in the AFC West. Patrick Mahomes and Bo Nix.
I don't think the Broncos were ready to beat the Chiefs yet, as bad as it sounds. I wanted to see the Chiefs get knocked off the pedestal from the undefeated ranks. Denver put up a much better fight than many people had anticipated, especially in Arrowhead Stadium. I got to give credit to the Chiefs special teams coordinator for setting up the block field goal attempt. The line for the Denver Broncos just collapsed, and I think the Chiefs had their best pass rushers in there. And Lord behold, they just got through the line and blocked the field goal. And by then, if anything, it was good execution by the Chiefs special teams coordinator. But also, I think God is a Kansas City Chiefs fan somewhere up in the heavens. And it's not been pretty. It hasn't been pretty, but they're winning games. There's not much else you could say.
I know. I mean, Patrick Mahomes hasn't been good this year. Travis Kelce had a slow start to the season. As for the Denver Broncos, I mean, this was a good fight. I mean, they really starting. I feel like this year for the Denver Broncos, what we've seen in them in years past, this is a much better football team than we've seen in years past because Russell Wilson looked bad under Sean Payton. Sean Payton now has his next Drew Brees. Bo Nix, he's got to be a sleeper for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I mean, listen, like I said before, the Broncos, like you said, put up a really, really good fight. They had the Chiefs on the ropes, and it looked like they were going to win the game off the field goal, but then obviously we know what happened. But I'm with you. I think that Bo Nix and Sean Payton could be a great head coach quarterback duo for years to come. Unfortunately, this was just not their time. And I think it will come someday where they knock off the Chiefs, but for now, you just got to give credit where credit is due to the defending Super Bowl champions.
I felt like that was a game that should have been Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, but Kevin Hart Trent did that game because, Trent Green is a former Kansas City Chief quarterback.
And I thought Kevin Harlan did a great job calling the block field goal. That call has been all over the internet, and I think Kevin Harlan did a fantastic job. I think Trent Green did a great job calling that football game. It's just unfortunate, like you said. I think Nancy Romo would have had a better call, but I can't complain with what I got.
Well, talk about the Colts and the Bills. Bills played phenomenally. But as for Joe Flacco, I told you, he is very, very streaky as a nowadays. He can have good games, he can have bad games, but this was bad Joe Flacco.
This was really, really bad. 3 interceptions. Against this Bills defense that's very opportunistic, and Josh Allen took advantage. The Colts were they looked slow offensively. They didn't look like they had the big plays. Michael Pittman did not get going. Jonathan Taylor did not really get going. So, obviously, Shane Steichen's got to find answers for this Colts offense. I think maybe benching Anthony Richardson, while we discussed off air that it shouldn't have happened, he needed to be taught a lesson. And you know what? While the Colts are sacrificing wins for this benching, it had to happen. But I think they're saying that they're sticking with Joe Flacco next week in Week 11. However, I do think the Colts are going to bring back Anthony Richardson soon. I think it's just a matter of when the kid will learn.
I think he will learn. I think I haven't given up on him as the Colts franchise quarterback. I don't really think he's a bust because, look, he's been through a lot injury-wise. But Anthony Richardson, I see as the Jalen Hurts of Shane Steichen.
And, he is. I mean, like I said, it's only a matter of time before they regret their decision and put him back in. But right now, the Colts are just saying, you know what? While we're punishing Anthony Richardson for his actions of wanting to take a break in the middle of a game, we're punishing ourselves as well.
Well, talk about a thrilling game in D.C. I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers got lucky to win this game. Washington should have won this game. They both played great, but Wilson had magic.
Well, George Pickens had a phenomenal catch to begin the game for a touchdown. Jane Daniels tried to go blow for blow with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and unfortunately, they just didn't have enough in them. I thought the referee screwed the Commanders with the spot on the 4th down play late. I mean, the Commanders are saying that Zach Ertz stretched past the line, which he did, and the commander and the officials did not call it. I felt like the Commanders got screwed in this one. But I also think that they showed lack of discipline when the Steelers tried to go for on fourth down late, and then one of the Commander defensive ends jumped offside, causing the game to be over on that play. So, I mean, listen, you could slice however you want. The Steelers got the win, but you know what? I think that they're going to face a tough stretch of their schedule. They got all 6 division games left, and they might go 2-4 in that stretch of division games.
Oh my gosh, they might not even make the playoffs, or they may. They're lucky. But I want to talk to you about something about this Jaguars and Vikings game. I thought Mac Jones was going to win it for them. I wanted him to get the Jags back on track. This is a team that I've been still optimistic with. But when are they going to string together? When is like they 2 all over again, where they started this bad and then they finished 9-8?
7 wins is like a miracle at this point for the Jaguars, and it's not going to get any better for them. They got to play the Detroit Lions next week in Detroit, so they're looking at 2-9 possibly. But oh my God, I mean, I don't know what else to say.
What is wrong with the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. It's just it's confusing. This team should have been a contender for the AFC South. The Texans are not playing that well, and yet the Jaguars are not capitalizing. They're not even winning games that they should be winning. But the Minnesota Vikings played terribly. They hardly even scratched together offense in this one. Aaron Jones did get hurt, but eventually he came back. But the Vikings should not be proud of this. They barely got by a terrible Jaguars team they got lucky.
The Vikings got lucky, and you talk about them being frauds. This was a fraud win for the Vikings.
It was, but again, the Jaguars are not a good team, but we don't know why. It's kind of head-scratching to think about, because this is the team that you figured, they're going to add – they had a couple weapons offensively. Brian Thomas Jr.'s had a really good rookie campaign, and they haven't done anything to show for it.
Maybe it's because it's a tough schedule that they got. And I also felt like the Jaguars should have – back was really hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's just like it's confusing to think. Like Doug Peterson's in this position. I'm interested to see how this season continues for the Jaguars, because right now they're 2-8, and they're the worst team in the AFC. Doug Peterson's got to be frightened right now with what's going on and what's happening, and I don't think he's even expected this.
This is really I'm not blaming this on Doug Peterson at all.
Well, if they go 2-15, God forbid, then what do you do?
You're going to have to scapegoat him.
And that's the worst thing to happen for the Jaguars, because Doug Peterson took this team to the playoffs. They won a playoff game with him. But then last year, the wheels started to fall off. They collapsed. And now it's like, what more can we do here?
Yeah, the Jaguars, I just don't know what's wrong with them at the moment. I mean, they really need to start. This is not going to be easy for them, but maybe the football gods could be like, hey, it's going to be like 22 all over again.
Pretty much. I mean, like I said, the Jaguars, you need a little bit of luck, but you also need to string together wins. You need to put in the work yourself and actually win games, not have the football gods give you wins every single week for the next 7 weeks.
Well, the New Orleans Saints were so bad. They could have lost this game to a really good Atlanta Falcons team. But this rivalry is still in the works. But hey, Darren Rizzi gets our game ball this week. His first win as an interim head coach for the New Orleans Saints.
Welcome to the NFL head coaching job, Darren Rizzi. I mean, I never would have expected. Their special teams coordinator guides the Saints to a win. This was a game I didn't really pay attention to, but I am going to say this. It was something that I definitely was surprised about. I didn't think the Saints could win this game. I thought they were going to extend their losing streak to 8 games, but Darren Rizzi got his guys prepared, and they knocked off the Falcons. Impressive.
Can we talk about the Chargers here? This is a team that is 6-3. They only held Tennessee to 17 points. And as for the Titans, these are two teams in opposite directions. The Chargers are going upward with Jim Harbaugh. The Tennessee Titans are going backward.
Well, they do have a first-year coach in Brian Callahan, but the Tennessee Titans look like they got no sense of direction at all. It's just a mess. It really is a mess. I want this Tennessee team to do well, but ever since they lost Derrick Henry, they've been on a downward spiral. and I don't think it's going to get any better. Sometimes you got to be bad to be good, but this Titans team needs a whole lot of work.
Yes, they do. I mean, this kind of reminds me of Zach Taylor's first year in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it very much is. I mean, Will Levis, I'm kind of just lost with him. I mean, they've had him for a few years now,
And
and
the Titans invested on weapons for him. They invested on Calvin Ridley. They invested on DeAndre Hopkins. They invested on Tony Pollard. They were supposed to be a team that was going to put this division over 500.
Yeah, at least over 500. But the problem with that is they've kind of given up on the season. They trade DeAndre Hopkins away to Kansas City, so now it's like it's a lost cause for Tennessee, and you feel bad because this was a team that was America's sweethearts 5 years ago when they made it to the AFC title game. Now they're just a complete opposite of where they have been.
Well, and then you talk about the Chargers. I mean, 6-3, number one defense in the NFL. I mean, Justin Herbert has had his best season under Jim Harbaugh. And I'm telling you, Jim Harbaugh's having a good time with Justin Herbert.
And you got to love it. I mean, this guy wanted Justin Herbert from the get-go. We knew this going into the season. And the Chargers defense is the bigger story. I didn't think they'd be this good, but they've really shocked a lot of people with how they've been playing defensively.
Give Jesse Minter his roses.
Yeah, and offensively, the Chargers' offense hasn't been explosive. Like, they're not scoring over 30 points a game, but they're winning, but they're scoring enough to keep them in ball games and win ball games. So the Chargers, you got to give them props. They rose significantly. They're in playoff position. So there's a lot to be proud about with this Chargers team. And like you said, you got to give Jim Harbaugh his roses.
Oh, yeah. I mean, was this a good move for Jim Harbaugh to return to the NFL? I really think it is. And I think he's here to stay in the NFL now.
And honestly, I think he's there to stay in the NFL, especially because I don't know how the NCAA would have handled him after winning a national championship and all the allegations of, sign stealing and all the other recruitment charges that he had going on with the University of Michigan. But I think he's happy to be where he is, and I don't think he's leaving for the NCAA anytime soon.
Well, this is a game that we got to spend more time talking about the Arizona Cardinals over the New York Jets. The Aaron Rodgers he got hit around, and he really didn't have any time to throw. This offense looked quiet, but for the Arizona Cardinals, they just found a way to pounce on this New York Jets team. And we talked about Jonathan Gannon being like Dan Campbell. And you know what? The Arizona Cardinals are like the Detroit Lions now.
And I like the way this team is playing. This Cardinal team is playing absolutely spot on the way they've been playing. Their defense is good. Kyler Murray is having, I think, one of his best seasons of his career.
I think he's better. I think he looks better without Cliff Kingsbury, though.
I think he does. And remember, Cliff Kingsbury was the only head coach Kyler Murray ever had. So now you bring in Jonathan Gannon, and he's instilled the ability for Kyler Murray to use his scrambling ability, utilize his arm, and show himself as a dual-threat quarterback. Also, Marvin Harrison Jr. has been a little bit of an added boost to Kyler Murray's stock, but I do like the way he's been playing. I really do. And this defense, like I mentioned, very, very, very aggressive, very turnover heavy. They get a lot of turnovers. They get a lot of stops when they need to. And like you said, they took it to town on Aaron Rodgers. And unfortunately, on the Jets side of things, I don't know if things are going to get better, but for Arizona, you got to look at this from a bigger picture. They're in first place in the NFC West. Nobody thought that'd be possible.
No, I didn't think so either. Arizona was so bad. Used to be. I mean, their ownership with Michael Billwell ownership was kind of bad at first, but the Cliff Kingsbury experiment was short-lived in Arizona.
Yeah, and now you bring in Jonathan Gannon, and then you mentioned it was like the Detroit Lions of 21, where Dan Campbell lost a lot of games his first year with the Lions, but then they played competitively and they lost games by 3 points or 4 points or 1 point. They lost a lot of games narrowly back in 2021. That was what the Cardinals were like last year. But this year, they've turned it around. Now they're getting the breaks. Now they're winning games handily. Now they're showcasing their offense with James Conner and Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. They're showcasing what talent they got, and they're using it to their full extent, but also getting the offensive breaks they need.
Yeah, offensively they've been good, but the defense, they've had their moments, but I feel like Arizona's defense is young, but they're going to get better. Like Budda Baker wanted out of there from the get-go, but you know what? His mind has officially changed.
Yeah, and I think that's a positive thing. Like when the player's outlook of a team changes, you're doing a good job as a head coach. So I think, like you said, Arizona's an attractive offer, but I want to get to the Jets for a second because this is just a debacle.
It is a debacle in gangrene. I mean, you invested on Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Brees Hall. So many names on this Jets offense that could help the Jets end this long playoff drought. But the Jets are going nowhere.
And you know what? Jet fans are probably saying to themselves, "Oh my God, here we go again." But it just seems like
I feel like Jets fans are sounding desperate.
Oh, they're desperate, all right. It's not looking good because you fire Robert Saleh earlier in the year thinking that it could provide a spark, but Jeff Ulbrich has done nothing right at all. The team's getting blown out every game he's coached. Aaron Rodgers just looks like a shell of himself from a few years ago when he won his 4th MVP award. And Jet fans were so excited because it was like, oh my God, we're getting a full season of Aaron Rodgers, and this could be great. It hasn't been great. I mean, there's been ups and downs, but it hasn't been good for the most part. And the Jets, like you said, they had this amazing draft class in 2022 that they felt like they could utilize. And it's been nothing at all. It's been non-existent.
What a waste. What a waste. I mean, Woody Johnson should get all the blame for this.
Well, I think the first thing he should have done was not fire Robert Saleh. I know he was not really the main problem behind the Jets, but you got to be able to, you got to go with what you got for a full season.
I'm afraid that Joe Douglas is going to get scapegoated.
And he might, because unfortunately, Joe Douglas gave Aaron Rodgers everything he wanted and then some, drafted really well in 2022, but those guys are not doing anything now. And he hasn't really done anything else since 2022, general manager-wise. Like I said, he's been held hostage for Aaron Rodgers' demands. And look at what Aaron Rodgers' demands have done.
Nothing.
Nothing, exactly.
He has his old Green Bay Packer teammates with him, and look what it's doing to the New York Jets.
That's right.
The Jets are behind time in the NFL.
They're right. You're right. They brought in Devontae Adams a few weeks ago, and he's a shell of himself. He wanted out of Las Vegas, and he's in a no better environment. The Jets are a terrible environment to be in. I know the Raiders aren't good as well, but this is terrible.
Oh, my gosh, yes. I mean, even my Pats split the season series with them, and the Bills are probably going to stomp all over them. The Dolphins, when we get to them in a minute, I feel like the Jets are behind the Bills and the Dolphins.
They're behind a majority of teams in the AFC right now. Like, the only team that they're behind is probably the Cleveland Browns. They're in front of is probably the Cleveland Browns, but that's it.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles showed why they are the favorites in that division, because I felt like offensively they played a lot better. Defensively, they were able to take advantage of missed cues, missed opportunities on the offensive side of the ball for the Cowboys, but also Dak Prescott being out for the year is kind of the last thing the Dallas Cowboys needed. And now the Cowboys are stuck without Dak Prescott.
You can kind of just stick a fork in the Cowboys at this point. It's over. It's gotten so bad to the point where Stephen A. Smith is not even giving a selfie video anymore. That's how bad it's gotten. Because he knows, and you and I both know, this team is bad. And on top of their season being over, you can make an argument that Mike McCarthy's job is also gone, especially because Micah Parsons is calling him out on his podcast.
Oh, yeah. That's a big sign because
it's a bad sign. It really is just a bad sign all across the board.
Yeah, it is a bad sign all across the board just because I just think the Dallas Cowboys are lost. I mean, this was a team that that should be a 12-win team at this point, but they would be lucky to get that last wild card spot if they won games, but their schedule's not easy at this point.
And think of it, they got to play the Commanders twice and the Eagles one more time. And I don't have the rest of their schedule in front of me, but they got to play the Texans next week. It's not looking good. And honestly, if I were a Dallas Cowboy fan, I would just stick a fork in it and just see what you got for the rest of the year. Just live to fight another year, and I would get rid of McCarthy as well. And we've discussed before.
We talked about this many times, that Dak Prescott's the only good thing that the Cowboys got.
And without Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb is useless. Without Dak Prescott, the running game for the Dallas Cowboys. Wait a minute,
Cooper Rush has won games.
Well, Cooper Rush has won games, but with a team like this, first off, the running game is a shell of itself. Getting rid of Tony Pollard was the worst thing they could do because Rico Dowdle has not been effective at all. And the defense is also a shell of itself because you get rid of Dan Quinn and you put in,
Mike Zimmer.
You put in Mike Zimmer, and the defense has regressed. Nothing's getting better. You're getting worse. And Mike McCarthy is at the forefront of it all because he's the head coach and he's been on the side of 12-win teams before, and it's not getting better. I think losing Dan Quinn was the ultimate sign that, okay, we could be in a bit of trouble here. And they figured they could persevere through that. They haven't persevered at all.
No, they haven't. Washington is now way ahead of things because I think Dan Quinn has done a great job with the Washington Commanders and also taken advantage of being a head coach a second time around.
Yeah, I mean, Mike McCarthy, you'd expect more from him at this point. I mean, this is his 5th year with the Cowboys, and he's a former Super Bowl champion, but he hasn't done enough to get this team where it needs to be. This team hasn't been to the NFC Championship game in now 30 years because I don't think they're going to the NFC Championship game this year. So the Cowboys are really in a pickle right now, and I don't know where they can go from here. I think if you fire Mike McCarthy, that wouldn't be a surprise.
You know, my Madden League, I was telling you the Cowboys made it to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 95 in my Madden League and lost to, of course, the 49ers.
Well, that's not happening.
But let's talk about the Lions and Texans. Man, I didn't watch this game, but I heard. I don't know who you had in this game. I picked Houston because they were at home, and I felt like that Detroit was due to lose. And you picked Detroit because you really like how they were playing on both offense and defense and also coaching with Dan Campbell. But the Lions had a bad first half. Jared Goff turned the ball over 5 times, and I was like, that game is over. But I saw in that locker room speech, Dan Campbell said, you guys found a way.
I mean, I don't know where this team is getting this from. I really don't know. Usually the Lions, over the course of their history, they lose games like this where your quarterback throws 5 interceptions. They lose games where you're down 23-7 with no sense of hope. They lose games because their kickers can't make 58, 52-yard field goals. Well, their fortunes have turned around. I mean, Jared Goff played so poorly this game that you thought this was over because one of the reasons why the Detroit Lions are so good is because of Jared Goff's efficiency as a passer. He completed 83% of his passes going into this game, and he did not play well at all. 5 picks in this game, and Amon-Ra St. Brown hardly got going. The running game was stuffed up for the most part, and somehow the defense kept C.J. Stroud grounded in the second half. And then the Lions took advantage of Texan miscues. And then also Jake Bates, who was selling insurance at one point, kicked a 58-yard field goal that just snuck through the uprights to tie the game, and then kicked a 52-yard field goal to win the game that just snuck in through the left side. So this Lions team, I'm impressed. I think that the fortunes are on their side, and you got to love it because Dan Campbell knew damn well he didn't deserve to win this game. But he got the win.
Oh, of course. This is why the Lions are a good team now. Because now their fortunes have turned. They can win games when it's by 3 points or less. Not like in years past where they couldn't.
Well, and the best thing is they're finding different ways to win, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. And I would like to have this discussion with you about who's better between the Chiefs and Lions. We'll get into that later, but the Lions are the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. I know they don't have the better record, but when you can win a game when your quarterback throws 5 interceptions, that tells me something.
Yeah, and for Houston, They shouldn't. They should be proud the way they played. But this was unfortunate for the Houston Texans. Texans have come from these type of games, but still, the Houston Texans are in a really weak division.
They're in a really weak division, so I think they're going to get the 4th seed in the AFC. But this is a game that they probably should have had. But like you said, they played really well. They're going to play the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. They should bounce back in that one. But again, this is just not the way you want to lose a football game to the Detroit Lions. I think the Texans have a really good, easy schedule for the rest of the way. And I think they're going to have a winning record. If not, go 10-7. But this is a win that's going to sting a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you, the Texans would be higher than a 4 seed if Stephon Diggs was healthy.
Yeah, no. You kind of imagine what would happen if Stephon Diggs was healthy or if Nico Collins was ready to go on Sunday night. Because Nico Collins is supposed
I felt like the Texans really would have needed to use Nico Collins. But, Tank Dell has been stepping up his game. Joe Mixon had a pretty decent game. And the Houston Texans, you and I talked about before the season and how good they were going to be this year. And they have not disappointed so far.
They haven't disappointed. You wish they could have been better. But for where they are now in the division they play in, this is where they should be. And you know what? I don't think Texans fans would complain about that.
No, not like in years past. But you know what? This game felt like a Super Bowl between D'Amico Ryans and Dan Campbell. Those are two really good coaches.
And it had that Super Bowl feel with the players, with the coaches, like you said, like it had a Super Bowl feel to it. Now, if we get this in the Super Bowl, that would be incredible. But I think the Chiefs are just too good. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFC right now. But I think teams like Philadelphia can challenge them. So we'll have to see. There's still half a season to go, but I'm really interested to see how the rest of this pans out.
Talk about the Miami Dolphins. This was a season-saving win for the Dolphins in LA. I mean, the Rams could have won this game, but you know what? Dolphins are going to start stringing together wins. They have an easy schedule down the stretch, but some of the tough teams they have to go through, they got to play Green Bay in the November cold. They got to go to Cleveland in the December cold, but they don't have to play the Bills anymore.
And you know what? That's your saving grace. You got to play the Jets twice, the Patriots once, and the Bills none. That's basically what your division breakdown is. And like you said, thank God they don't have to play the Bills anymore, because if they had to play the Bills one more time in Week 18, that would have been the end of their season, because the Bills know how to beat the Dolphins. We know this. And I think Tua played really well. I think the offense could have been a lot better. You see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle getting involved more in the passing game, which is what we were waiting for. The defense was excellent against Matthew Stafford. I felt like that was a big thing for them last night. And, this is what they needed. Now they need to rack up more wins and build off this victory and go, 10-7, if not 9-8 the rest of the way. But I like the way this Dolphins team performed last night, and I think this is a confidence booster.
It is. I mean, as for the Rams, the Rams, I think, are in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the Rams are in it still in a very bad conference. But the Rams, since the bye week, I felt like they've started to play good football as of late.
They have played good football. This was just a game that was just that didn't go their way. They kicked 5 field goals and didn't find the end zone. I still believe in this team. I think they can make the NFC West an interesting division. That NFC West, by the way, you're talking a team that's 6-4 going into a bye week, a team that's 5-4 playing the Seahawks this upcoming week, and a Rams team that could go 5-5 if they beat the Patriots. So you're talking about potentially 6-4, 5-5, 5-5, 5-5 in the NFC West, with the Cardinals leading the way. That's kind of amazing. I never.
Well, before we get to our Week 11 picks, we got to debate this. Who's the best team right now between the Chiefs and the Lions? If these two teams were to meet in the Super Bowl, I feel like Kansas City has the edge, but Detroit's going to put up a good fight.
I love the way this Lions team played. I honestly think that even though Kansas City has found ways to win, I think Detroit's way of winning is better. Because the Kansas City Chiefs have gotten the breaks a lot this season. Their point differential this season is plus 58 through the course of 9 games. You do the math, that's like winning by a touchdown every game. And that's kind of fair because they've been living on the edge with Isaiah Likely's toe going out of bounds, with a terrible pass interference call by a Bengals DB, barely getting by the Raiders, the blocked field goal by the Broncos, the overtime win against the Buccaneers. They've had a lot of ways to escape, and escaping is fine. But I also want to see a team win with authority, and the Lions can do that. The Chiefs, not as much.
Well, let's talk about Week 11. We start Thursday Night Football in the city of brotherly love. Those are two teams that I think are going to rule the NFC East because we thought it was going to be Philadelphia and Dallas. I think we found a new number 2 team in the NFC East in the Washington Commanders. And I think this year and next year, both of these two teams are going to be going toe-to-toe in the division. So in this matchup, Jalen Hurts versus Jaden Daniels. Oh, boy, we're going to be for some offense in this one. I'm going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles to win this football game because Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, I think they have the slight advantage over Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin.
This is a very interesting game to pick. It's interesting we're getting this on a Thursday night, but I got to go with the Commanders on this one. I think that they're going to bounce back from this loss. I know it's in Philadelphia, which is a hostile environment, but I think the Commanders can pull through and get the win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no one would expect them to win the division right now based on how they're playing. But Jaden Daniels, I tell you, I think he's already playing like how C.J. Stroud was last year in his rookie year. And I feel like people would want to play with Jaden Daniels coming this offseason.
And it's great for the Commanders because they got the new ownership group led by Josh Harris. So this is a positive sign for the Commanders. And I think moving forward, this is phenomenal.
Well, the Las Vegas Raiders are going into South Florida to down the Miami Dolphins. I feel like the Dolphins are the better 2-win team than the Raiders are. Those losses that they had were without Tua. I'm going to say the Miami Dolphins keep the trend rolling.
I think the Dolphins start to build up some momentum. I think they beat the Raiders here.
That's not a. That's probably going to be a blowout. Antonio
It
Pierce
should
has
be,
this
yeah.
team. But Antonio Pierce has this team playing, I'll tell you.
I mean, they're playing, just not hard enough.
Well, the Cleveland Browns. Oh, boy. It's the worst team Super Bowl between the Cleveland Browns and the New Orleans Saints. I guess I'd go with the Saints. Darren Rizzi, I think he goes 2-0 in this as a head coach. But you know what? This is not really the Browns' season.
It's not the Saints season either. I mean, this is a game that you could literally watch sitting on a toilet. You wouldn't really care. It's just one of those games. I really have no interest in this game at all, but I am going to say that the New Orleans Saints have a slight edge.
Well, the Colts are going to the Big Apple. This game could have been on Sunday Night Football, but it got switched to CBS, and instead we'll talk about the Bengals and Chargers and a little bit. Both teams have playoff aspirations, but the Colts do too. I'm picking the Colts to win this football game.
JETS, just end the season. Give me the Colts.
Just end the season. I like that. That's what JET stands for.
Yep.
Just end the season right now.
Yes, sir.
The Jets, I know your dad and Ryan Jr., they must be pissed right now.
Oh, they're not happy campers right now. They could be doing a whole bunch of other things right now. At least they got red zone. So
yeah, because I think your dad would be so upset with how the Jets are playing this year and not firing Robert Saleh.
Hey, listen, between the Yankees losing the World Series and the Jets right now, you can just imagine how he's feeling.
Well, the Minnesota Vikings are taking on the Titans. Who wants to watch this game? Man, you got the Vikings that appear to get lucky every game now, and they still have a good record. I'm like, they should be falling right now. And the Tennessee Titans are 2-7. My gosh, the Vikings don't have a. Let me tell you something. If they had J.J. McCarthy as their starting quarterback, they would win this game easily.
They should win this game easily because the Titans are incompetent, but it could be competitive.
I'm going to say the Vikings win this game. but they got to play better than how they did last week.
I think they play better too. I think the Vikings get the win here.
What I'm saying is Sam Darnold is streaky, and I feel like J.J. McCarthy is more the future of the Minnesota Vikings.
I mean, the beautiful thing right now that Sam Darnold is doing, they're winning football games the way they are, but is their method of winning going to help them in the playoffs? Absolutely not. So I think it's good the Vikings are in playoff position right now, but if they go to the postseason, they're going to get spanked by whoever they play.
It's because J.J. McCarthy is going to be their future, and you know that when he comes back, the Vikings are going to be a much better football team with J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, absolutely. That's no question.
Because he's got the weapons, he's got the offense around him, and I feel like J.J. McCarthy will be much better because I feel like everybody in Minnesota would get into their games, especially at U.S. Bank Stadium, and U.S. Bank Stadium is going to be rocking with J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, agreed, 100%.
I just don't think they're rocking with Sam Darnold.
They're not. I mean, they started off strong. It looked like Sam Darnold was going to win Comeback Player of the Year, and he might. But as a whole, it's kind of fading fast.
Yeah, they're going to have to face reality there. But the oldest rivalry in the NFL meets for the first time this season at Soldier Field. The Green Bay Packers going up against the Chicago Bears. I picked the Bears to win last week, but this week I'm not going to be on the Bears train because I just think Caleb Williams, I would expect him to have a much better game, but the Packers are playing a lot. The Packers are playing really well right now. I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers to win this game. I just think the Green Bay Packers have the slight edge over the Chicago Bears.
I'm picking the Packers as well. I think the Chicago Bears have checked out at this point.
Not necessarily, though, but they have a tough schedule. They're going to have to play the Lions. They're going to have to play Green Bay again in Week 18, so their schedule down the stretch is brutal. They have to play a lot of good teams now.
Yeah, nothing's in their favor right now. They don't control their own destiny, which is not great for a football team looking to get in the postseason. Caleb Williams' season started strong, but I think, like I said, after the Washington game, things really spiraled out of control.
I think Caleb Williams is the future of the Chicago Bears. There's no question about that. But changing coordinators, I think that's going to help down the line for the Bears.
Changing coordinators is going to be useful. Changing head coaches might be the way to go as well.
And why do you think changing head coaches might be the way to go? Like, if the Bears continue to crumble down the stretch, or what if they make the playoffs and get knocked out in the first round? Does that mean Matt Eberflus is gone?
Well, if they make the playoffs and get knocked out, I think Matt Eberflus would stay at that point because the goal is to make the playoffs with a rookie QB. Now, if you don't make the playoffs after such a good start, then you fire Matt Eberflus, and I think that would be very beneficial for them because the Bears don't have a great offensive-minded head coach, which is what they absolutely needed getting Caleb Williams in the first place. So now it's like you gotta wonder where ownership's head is at right now, watching this team crumble.
I mean, ownership has not been good. Like, George McCaskey deserves all the blame he needs.
Oh, 100%. No question.
He has. I felt like that. The ownership under him is not really that good, and I don't know if you fire Ryan Poles at this point.
Well, that's a different conversation. I mean, you got to give him props for drafting Caleb Williams and Roman Dunze because those two seem like bright spots. But do you really want to go through another draft class with this guy? I mean, that's the big question.
Probably not. But the Jaguars, man, this is reality for the Jaguars now that they're playing the Detroit Lions. I got to be real here. As much as I believed in the Jaguars from the get-go to win ball games and get back into the playoff hunt, it's over.
It's over. They've checked out. They're done. Lions by 20.
Oh, yeah, and they got to give Doug Peterson a pass. I think Shad Khan has to say, you know what? I'm going to give him another shot next year.
Debatable. And the reason why it's debatable is because you had this team for the last 2 years. You had the same roster the last 2 years, if not better, because of Brian Thomas. But now you're facing a tough schedule. The schedule really shouldn't be a valid excuse. And the Jaguars didn't really have a lot of injury problems. So if I were Shad Khan, I'd evaluate and say, unless we win 7 in a row, it might be time to make a change. But the problem with Jacksonville is there's not a lot of options at head coach.
Oh, there isn't. Doug Peterson, I think, is the only one they got. But Trent Baalke, people don't really like Trent Baalke.
Yeah, and that might be something to blame as well. I mean, they haven't drafted well for the most part for the last couple of years. Drafting a defensive lineman number one overall, it wasn't really something that you had to do. So I think the Jaguars, while they might be out of control this season, I think they lose this week by 20. But I'm very confident that there might be a front office change.
Oh, yeah. I think Khan would probably make a change at GM, but not head coach, though.
Fair to say.
But talk about the Rams and the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots have momentum heading into this game. The Rams looking to keep their playoff hopes alive. Drake May has played so well. I would expect him to play well, but I think New England is going to lose this game. I think the Rams are trying to keep their playoff hopes alive.
And I think is this game on the West Coast?
No, it's in Foxborough.
It's in Foxborough. Okay, so that makes it a little bit more interesting because Southern California teams don't play well in cold weather. And we're getting to that point here in the East Coast where it's starting to get a little chilly. So I'm going to say, and you're going to be shocked about this, I think the Patriots upset the Rams here. I don't know why I'm saying this. I think the Patriots have a lot of momentum right now. I think their DBs are going to keep Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp in check. And Matthew Stafford is going to look like a shell of his old self. So I'm going to say the Patriots upset here.
I could really see that again. They really proved me wrong last week in Chicago because I was saying to myself, the Patriots were probably going to be in this place with the Jets, but but the tables have turned since because the Jets are kind of falling downhill.
Oh no, momentum has completely turned, completely, and I think the Patriots are going to build off of the win in Chicago.
Oh, of course. Oh yeah. I mean, the Patriots, they're starting to showcase what they are with Drake May, but still the roster isn't that good. But I'm kind of at a place where I'm like, this is a much better team that I'm seeing than last year.
Oh yeah, it's night and day with these two teams from last year and this year. It's night and day, and I think the Patriots fans are proud of that.
Talk about the Baltimore Ravens playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Two teams that are really good, but the Steelers are going to have to face. I'm picking the Ravens to win this football game because I just think the Steelers, they're in a tough stretch now. They started the season with not playing divisional games, but now they're facing reality now.
The division games are going to be the death of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Ravens win this game, and I also think, as a side note, Lamar Jackson's on track to win NFL MVP for the third time in his career.
You know what? Lamar Jackson is like the new Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning didn't win all the Super Bowls. He won the MVPs. Patrick Mahomes was like Tom Brady now.
That's a good comparison.
That's what I'm saying. Lamar Jackson gets all the MVP trophies. Patrick Mahomes with the Super Bowls.
And those are the two faces of the NFL today.
I'm comparing it because during the Manning-Brady era, the era that I grew up in, Tom Brady had the Super Bowls. Peyton Manning owned the stats and MVP trophies.
No, you're right. That's exactly how it went. I mean, Peyton Manning has 2 Super Bowls in his trophy case, but those 5 MVPs are something you cannot ignore at all.
He was never a good playoff quarterback to begin with. He would always get knocked out in the second round when his teams get bye weeks.
Yeah.
But he went out as a 2-time Super Bowl champ.
And you know what? He went on a high note, and I think Brady went out on a good note as well. So, listen, you pass the torch on to the next generation of QBs. I think Lamar and Patrick Mahomes, the NFL's in good hands for years to come.
Now the Seahawks are going into San Francisco, where the Niners beat the Seahawks at Lumen Field. I have a feeling the 49ers are going to trounce on them. Give Geno Smith a hard time. Miss $13 Lockett and Jackson Smith-Njigba. And there's no DK Metcalf because he's out for the year. The Seahawks are a very streaky team, but limit Kenneth Walker.
I'm going to say the 49ers. I think this team is rejuvenated to have their star running back in Christian McCaffrey. And I think he's going to have his first 100-yard rushing game of the season.
Well, the Falcons came off a heartbreaker in the Big Easy. And the Denver Broncos came off a heartbreaker in Kansas City. I'm picking the Denver Broncos in this game because I think Sean Payton has the Falcons number.
I'm going to pick Sean Payton and the Broncos as well. I think that even though Atlanta is a talented team, they're not as good as Denver could be.
Well, I mean, Bo Nix, he's had a great rookie year. You talk about the Broncos defense being up and down, and Pat Surtain should be defensive player of the year.
Oh, yeah, no. Those are all valid points. I think that the Broncos have massively improved since last season, if not the year before that. So there's a lot to look forward to, and I like that.
Well, we are now at the game of the week here on CBS. The Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park. Oh, boy. Josh Allen plays well against Patrick Mahomes in the regular season, but he owns him in the playoffs. So this is tough for me. I am going to pick the Chiefs to win this football game. I just think they're going to find a way. Harrison Buck for the game-winning field goal. I just think Buffalo will find a way to stay in it, but they're probably going to lose this one.
As expected, this is the must-watch game of the week. I mean, Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen is the hottest quarterback rivalry in the AFC, if not the second best quarterback rivalry in the NFC behind Lamar and Mahomes. But I got to tell you, I'm very convinced that Mahomes and the Chiefs, their streak might come to an end in Orchard Park because they have the pressure of having an undefeated season riding on their shoulders. You're playing Josh Allen in the cold. And it's funny, after the Buffalo Bills, there's no other team that's man enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is it. I think if the Bills win this game, if the Chiefs win this game, they're going to go undefeated. If they don't win this game, they're going to be fine. But they'll go like 16-1 or 15-2. I'm going to say the Kansas City Chiefs lose to the Buffalo Bills, and there will be no more unbeatens in the NFL. This was a tough decision, but I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills.
Especially it's at home because Mafia at Highmark Stadium are going to be rocking. They're going to be singing, chanting, waving, throwing snowballs, bracing the cold.
Oh, it's going to be a madhouse in Orchard Park. And you know what? This is the rematch from their 2023 divisional playoff game. So I'm very convinced that the Buffalo Bills have not forgotten about that. And I think they're going to take away that undefeated streak from the Kansas City Chiefs.
You know, was it Andy Reid? Andy Reid has had a winning record against former assistants.
Yeah, but you got to understand, he's great in playoff games against former assistants. Regular season is a different story.
Oh, that's why you're saying that so fast.
Yep.
But he did beat John Harbaugh because that was an Andy Reid assistant.
That's true. That's true.
Well, Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers playing against his brother's division rival, the Cincinnati Bengals. I bet John and Jim were texting about this game.
They're probably exchanging notes about, hey, I'm playing the Bengals. What do I do? Hey, how do you stop Joe Burrow? Hey, how do you do? But like, there's probably some exchanging going back and forth.
There's probably exchanges between John Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh about this game. But you know what? Not to get ahead of myself, I can wait for the Harbaugh Bowl on the 25th of November.
Ooh, that should be a nice one.
Because that's a Monday nighter. John versus Jim will be the most watched football game. And next week, the Chargers will get to play. It's going to be the John and Jim Harbaugh Bowl.
It should be fun. It should be fun. But in context for Bengals and Chargers, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking the Chargers win this game. I think the Chargers are playing great football right now. That I think they're going to hold on to that 5 spot. The Bengals are going to be in a test. They're going to be competitive. But I also think playing on the road is tough for the Bengals.
I think the Bengals' main problem is their defense. We've gone over this time and time again. The Chargers aren't the flashiest offense this season, but you know what? They can score when they need to. So I'm going to take the Chargers as well.
Well, Monday Night Football in Dallas. The Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys going head-to-head. We talked about Stephen A. Smith not making any selfie videos anymore about the Cowboys. I still think he will, but it might not be as much.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna make a bunch of selfie videos anymore. We've discussed and he knows very well this Cowboy team is not as good as it should be. Who wins the battle in Texas though? I'm taking the Houston Texans. If it's in Jerry's world, that's an even worse sign because this Cowboys team just can't play well at home.
I'm going with the Texans too. I feel like Dallas Cowboy fans are going to hit for the exits when it's 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's going to be a bloodbath.
They hit the exits early in the game against Philly.
Well, at that point, when you're down 34-6 and your reserves are in, what else can you do?
The Cowboy fans left.
Yep.
So that's why I think Jerry World. I feel like Cowboy fans, I think Cowboy fans are so desperate, and they're probably going to keep booing.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
Well, anyways, now next week for Week 12, we got the Browns and the Steelers. I think that's an easy win for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I think it's an easy win for Pittsburgh as well.
And then the Harbaugh Bowl, which we're looking forward to, and then the Eagles in LA play the Los Angeles Rams.
Couple good ones here. Couple good ones.
And then America's game of the week between the 49ers and Packers. That's going to be a fantastic football game. And we got some divisional games. Patriots, Dolphins, Cowboys, Commanders. Do we really need to discuss the Chiefs-Panthers game? No.
Nope.
Because the Chiefs are going to – I feel like Chiefs fans will be watching, but I have a feeling come fourth quarter they're going to switch to red. They probably will switch to red zone when it's 1 minute left in the –
Well, 1 minute left in the third. Yeah, it's not gonna be a tuned-in game.
That's not gonna be a watch game.
No.
For Chiefs fans, it is, but they probably gonna watch the whole game. But everybody else in the nation, they're probably not gonna watch this football game. Because it's that game is too easy for Kansas City.
Oh yeah.
And then the Broncos and Raiders in Vegas. I mean, Antonio Pierce likes playing hard. I'll tell you that.
He does, but I don't know if he has a chance in that one.
And then the Cardinals are going to Seattle, but that's probably a win for the Arizona Redbirds.
Yep.
But anyways, let's talk some baseball here. I mean, the Juan Soto sweepstakes is heating up. The Dodgers are reportedly set to meet him, and then Hal Steinbrenner and Aaron Boone are flying out to California to meet Aaron Boone, to meet with Juan Soto.
And then on top of that, we also have news that the Mets are throwing their hat in as well. And apparently Francisco Lindor is going to be involved in the recruiting process to bring in Juan Soto. So you got those three teams kind of fighting tooth and nail to try and get Juan Soto, but I think the Dodgers are the first team that are going to visit him first, correct?
Not sure yet, but we also have other news to talk about first. Travis d'Arnaud is going to the Angels. He's going to back up Logan O'Hoppe.
Yep.
And
that just came in.
That just came in. And I like this because Travis d'Arnaud can really hit the ball.
He can. I think that this is a good move. The Angels need a lot more pieces to help them out, though. But he's a good catcher. I like the way he plays.
Yeah, gets to play for Ron Washington, a former Braves coach. But talk about in my show league here about what if Juan Soto's a Met? His first game as a Met will be at Citi Field against the Atlanta Braves.
Wow.
And for sure, I'll make that game be a doubleheader. Like Mets Braves Sunday Night Baseball Game 1 with SNY and FanDuel Sports Southwest to do the game on their local affiliates, and then Yankees Orioles still being ESPN exclusive.
Wow. Okay.
That's what I'm thinking if that happens. Just because the Mets and the Braves are going to be tooth and nails for the playoffs. But if Juan Soto's a New York Met, I feel like the Mets are going to challenge the Braves
Oh
without
yeah,
a doubt.
absolutely, absolutely. And maybe even challenge the Phillies too. I think the Mets would insert themselves in the NL East Division champion conversation if they do get Juan Soto, and that's a big if because even though we know Steve Cohen has a lot of money in his pocket, it's going to be the Yankees are not gonna lie down easily, and the Dodgers are not going to lie down easily.
Oh, of course, you're right about that. But um, I'm also thinking we talked about Pete Alonso staying with the Mets. If the Mets sign Juan Soto, does that mean Pete Alonso will still stay? I still think he will.
It's a big financial risk to do that. I know the Yankees are looking at Pete Alonso as well because Anthony Rizzo is not coming back, so there's a possibility that Alonso could stay in New
Oh,
York, but just
wait,
put on the
not so
pinch hits.
fast on Pete Alonso. You guys might be trading for Josh Naylor of the Cleveland Guardians.
What?
Josh Naylor.
Say that again?
Josh Naylor. Potentially playing first base for the New York Yankees.
Oh my goodness. Where'd you hear this?
I just saw it. I just saw it on like different websites that the Yankees could look to trading him because they need a left-handed bat on the lineup.
They do. That's interesting. I never thought about that. I thought he would be a Guardian for life.
But I think that
Oh
I
my
think
god.
but I still think, you know what? I still think that whatchamacallit. I still think that
And Naylor can stay in Cleveland.
that Naylor could stay in Cleveland, but the Yankees, they probably will get Carlos Santana.
Yeah, that's more likely to happen than Josh Naylor. Oh my goodness.
That's what I heard, but I forgot to tell you which news source I got that from.
Yeah. All right. So before we get going, we have several minutes. We got the NBA Cup beginning this evening.
Well, we were still talking about baseball here.
Oh shoot, sorry about that.
I was saying that Juan Soto, I still think he's going to be a New York Yankee, but what if the Mets offer him the most amount of money for Juan Soto? That would not be surprising.
Listen, if the Mets get him, I'm not going to be surprised. If the Yankees get him, that would be a shocker because I feel like the Dodgers and Mets are willing to put in as many dollar bills as they can to get this guy because they're adamant on making their team better. Now, if the Dodgers get Juan Soto, you might as well just cancel the entire 2025 season because then there'd be no competition. None.
If Juan Soto is a Dodger, is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
But I still think Juan Soto will remain a Bronx Bomber.
I mean, I hope so too, but I think Hal Steinbrenner realizes how much of a financial war this is going to be.
Oh boy. And I did hear that this is not going to linger into 25. I'm hearing that a decision on Juan Soto signing with the team is probably going to come in sometime next month.
Oh, so before the year ends.
Oh yeah, it's not like the Bryce Harper-ish situation.
Oh yeah.
Like in 2019 where it took them a long time.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a while. That took a while.
That was like one of the worst free agent classes that I've ever seen.
It was. It really was.
So and then we also have to talk about some award finalists. First, we'll start with AL MVP. Aaron Judge and his teammate Juan Soto are in the race with Bobby Witt Jr. And then you also talk about in the NL Ohtani with Francisco Lindor and Ketel Marte. I have a feeling AL MVP is going to be Judge Ohtani.
I think it's going to be Judge Ohtani too. I'm shocked that Ketel Marte of the Diamondbacks got in the National League conversation. I knew that Lindor would be in there, but I didn't think Ketel Marte would be a front runner for that award.
And then for Manager of the Year, Mike Schilt, Pat Murphy, Carlos Mendoza. I'm like, why was Dave Roberts snubbed? That's a slap in the face.
Honestly, I don't even know why he's not in that category either. I mean, they did have the best record in baseball, but in that category, I'd probably go with Carlos Mendoza just because of how fast he turned the Mets around.
He turned the Mets around with really good. And then AJ Hinch, Matt Quacharo, and Stephen Vogt for AL Manager of the Year. I want to pick Stephen Vogt.
I'm picking Steven Vogt as well because this was his first year as a manager, and the Guardians were really, really solid.
For AL Rookie of the Year, you have 2 Yankee finalists with Colton Cowser. I think Colton Cowser wins it.
I agree.
And then NL Rookie of the Year, I'm trying to see the list here. It is Jackson Chourio, Jackson Merrill, and Paul Skeens.
Yeah.
I'm going Paul Skeens.
I'm picking Paul Skeens as well, but I do think Jackson Chourio should be an honorable mention here.
Well, and then for Cy Young Award, we got a reliever on that list. Emmanuel Clase, Seth Lugo, and Turek Skubal. I think Turek Skubal wins it.
Skubal is a lock to win that one.
And then Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens, Chris Sale. Chris Sale should be comeback player of the year. He should also win the Cy Young. He really was a bright spot for the Atlanta Braves.
It's a shame that Chris Sale got injured and couldn't play in the season finale, but I think Chris Sale wins the award regardless.
Yeah, I think Chris Sale is going to be really good for the Braves next year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and then anyways, now you were just talking about basketball. I mean, the NBA. Before we talk about the NBA Cup, we got to start talking about today's game between the Mavericks and the Warriors. Klay Thompson makes his return to Golden State, where he had so much success with Steph Curry and the Warriors. But you know what? I kind of think, I really think the Mavs are going to want to come in there and win this game for Klay Thompson.
This is going to be an emotional game. It really is, because Klay Thompson, you talk about how valuable he was of an asset to those Golden State Warrior teams, and then you talk about the fact that it took him 2 years to get back on the court for the Warriors. So it's a really emotional game that this is going to turn out to be. I do also like the Dallas Mavericks and how they've been playing, so I think I'm going to go with the Mavericks to win this one here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State gets the win.
Oh, you're not wrong about that, because the Warriors are playing really good basketball right now. The Cleveland Cavaliers have yet to lose a game. I think it's because you know what? They're playing team basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I never expected this. I really never expected this from the Cleveland Cavaliers, that for them to be the last team standing. It's just really, really shocking. When the Thunder were undefeated, they were 9-0, 7-0. They were winning by double digits, but the Cavaliers, they've been putting up really good numbers against teams like the Bulls and the Bucks, who are not that good this year. It's going to be really interesting to see if they can match the 24-0 record that the Warriors set almost a decade ago.
Well, we talked about the Trop here. We forgot to talk about that. It will cost $55.7 million in repair. Do you think the Rays will return to the Trop in 26, or it's too late to comfort?
It's funny because I did hear about the damage, the repair fees and all that stuff that the Trop's going to be having, and they won't be ready until 2026. Honest to God, and to close this out, because this is probably a tough conversation, the Trop is not a great place to be. It's just a very, very weird ballpark. And if I were the Rays, they're supposed to get a new ballpark in 2028. I would rush the process if I were the Tampa Bay Rays. I think that you could, probably play the next couple of years in Carolina before you head to your new stadium. I think it's just the end for the Trop. I mean, this just kind of told you. I mean, yeah, the circumstances are horrible, but I think this just clarifies that the Trop is just not it anymore. And I think that you got to find someone else to play in 2028 till 2028. And I think that this is the end of an era.
I think you got to play in Durham, North Carolina now.
Yeah.
So anyways, we got to talk about Chet Holmgren here. That was a gruesome injury. Talk about injuries starting early for these super early superstars. Like Joel Embiid's not yet to play. And then you talk about Chet Holmgren, the Thunder young star, young stud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's bad for the NBA.
Yeah, you see these stars go down, and you're kind of like shocked and amazed about how bad the league is taking injuries to their stars. And also, Joel Embiid is supposed to return tonight, I believe. But that man, I'm going to make this very quick, and I don't want to get too many comments on this, but the way he handled that reporter and shoved him, and he got fined for it, it was not called for. And I feel like he should probably be disciplined even more than just 3 games. But Joel Embiid is not having a good season. The Sixers are not having a good season right now, and they need to learn from their mistakes.
Absolutely. Anyways, that's going to do it here, and I'll let you get your haircut and have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.